Today we are going to show you a rare but satisfying win for Hans Niemann against Magnus Carlsen. This is not the infamous two-move game where Magnus resigned due to cheating concerns, but in fact a much longer game. It happened at the Chess.com Blitz Chess Finals in 2024. Niemann had the white pieces and started with pawn to e4. Magnus played the Caro Kann defense, and Niemann played knight to f3. Magnus played pawn to d5, and Niemann developed his other knight. This is called the two knights variation, which is one of the most aggressive ways for white to play against the Caro Kann. Here, black could play bishop to g4, but the most common move is to take the pawn on e4, which was what happened. Obviously, Niemann took the pawn back. From here, black could develop their light square bishop, but Magnus instead played the main line, which is knight to f6. This move offers a trade of knights, which would result in doubled pawns for black, but actually gives black a comfortable position. Instead of a trade, Niemann played queen to e2, which is the second most popular move. It allows white to castle long, if they wish to, and the queen is also facing the black king. From here, black could make a huge blunder with the move knight to d7. Pause the video and work out what white could do. I will show the answer at the end of this video. Magnus, of course, did not make a blunder. He traded knights and then played queen to e5 to offer a queen trade. Niemann refused with the move queen to e3. Magnus again offered a queen trade with queen to e6, but Niemann remembered the chess rule that to take is a mistake, so he did not take the queen. Instead, he played pawn to b3. He aimed to fianchetto his dark square bishop, regardless of whether he castled long. Magnus traded the queens, and Niemann retook with the f-pawn, which I think makes sense. It allows an open f-file for the rook later in the game. From here, Magnus set up a chain of pawns on the dark squares. This pawn chain nullifies the power of the long dark bishop, but Niemann played bishop to b2 anyway, and then after the move d4, there was a pawn trade in the center. Niemann wisely took back with the pawn, which opened up the e-file. Now, both the e and f files were open, and this was a decent attacking foundation. Next, Magnus played the move bishop to b4 check. Black could block here with a pawn, but it would further block the scope of the long dark bishop. So instead, Niemann played king to f2. From here, both players developed their light squared bishops. Here, it is just important to get all the pieces into the action and then connect the two rooks. Without any queens, both kings are safe for now. Magnus next played king to f7. There is no need to castle, and king to f7 just puts the king closer to the center, which may be useful in an endgame. From here, Niemann kicked the dark bishop away with the a3 pawn. Magnus retreated the bishop to d6, and Niemann played rook to f1. I like this move as the rook is now facing the enemy king, and as you will see, it is very effective later on. Next, Carlsen played knight to d7, and after this all his pieces were developed. Niemann played king to g1, which is an excellent move. The king is now quite safe, and the rook on f1 is not blocked. Next, bishop to f4 by Magnus is an attack-minded move, but the engine does not like it and suggests that pawn h6 is a much better move. Niemann responded with rook to e1, getting another attacker on an open file. Magnus played rook to e8, but again the engine does not like this move, because white can soon attack the f4 bishop and gain a tiny advantage. Niemann played g3 to attack this bishop, but the engine actually says rook to e4 is a better attack. This move would allow white to double their rooks on the e-file. After bishop to h6, Niemann played king to g2, which was a bit of a strange move. After that, the game continued with the moves pawn to b5, and then pawn to h4. Magnus next played pawn to g6, which the engine did not like. The engine prefers bishop to d5 because it pins the knight, which is quite dangerous. Bishop to e4 by Niemann attacked the weak corner pawn, so Magnus played bishop to d5, but this was not a good move. The bishops were traded, and Niemann finally played knight to e5, which could have been played sooner. This was a great move, and basically won him the game. The black king is in check and the knight is attacked. The king cannot move to the e-file, or there would be a discovered attack, and the pawn obviously cannot take either. So instead, the knight had to trade, and when the white pawn retook, there was an instant attack on the f6 pawn. Here, Let us pause to look at the options for Magnus. If the pawn were to bypass, there is pawn to e6 check, and the corner rook would be toast. Bishop to g7 is also a big mistake, as white can just take a pawn and attack the bishop. The only good move here for Magnus is rook to e6. However, Niemann was able to play rook f6 check anyway. This move ensures the trade of rooks and allows the pawn to recapture and advance to f6. Now, Magnus Carlsen is in trouble, and he simply cannot allow Niemann to play rook e7 check. So, as a result, he played the move rook e8 and ensured that the two rooks were traded off. After this trade, we can see a few slightly untidy moves by both players, but in the end, Niemann was able to complete his chain of advanced pawns. The move pawn h5 by Magnus is a mistake, and instead he should have played pawn h6. Pawn h6 breaks the chain of pawns apart, and you can see that taking h6 would not work for black, because the bishop can easily retake. However, it was a blitz game and Magnus did not see it. He might be a genius, but he is still human. Over the next few moves, we see Niemann doing the correct thing and activating his king. He is heading over towards the a6 pawn, safe in the knowledge that if the black king ever tries to move, then the f7 pawn is extremely close to promotion. At this stage, Niemann plays another great move which seals victory. That move is pawn to c4. Magnus has to trade, because moving the king would result in the move c5, with an attack on the bishop. So the trade happened and now the white king can march towards the a6 pawn. Over the next few moves we see how Niemann edged the king towards the pawn. Magnus put the pawn on h5 in an attempt to protect it with his dark squared bishop, but unfortunately for him, Niemann had a dark square bishop of his own, which he eventually placed on c7, and this bishop then captured the key pawn. Carlsen displayed his fighting spirit, playing bishop takes h4, which does allow his own h-pawn to move towards promotion, but unfortunately he was just too late. Niemann cleared the way for the a-pawn, and Magnus played bishop to b8 in a last-ditch attempt to stop it. Niemann played pawn a7, and it was at this point that Carlsen realized the situation was lost, and he resigned. We can play on a few moves and see what might happen. Bishop takes pawn, but bishop takes back. Black would play pawn h3, hoping to promote, but then white can play bishop g1. There is no way for black to promote, and the black king cannot move because of the passed pawn on f6. So, this shows a well-deserved and very rare win for Hans Niemann against Magnus Carlsen. On this occasion, I think there is no suggestion whatsoever that he cheated. Let's finish the video by looking at the puzzle where black plays knight b to d7. Here white will win instantly with a smothered checkmate. If you are playing at a lower level, watch out for this easy and spectacular kind of victory. According to Chess, 30,000 people have actually won with this move. Thanks very much indeed for taking the time to watch this, and please subscribe if you want more content like this.